Hi everyone, I'm Bren and welcome to my first garden update of spring 2021. This week we're going to take a wander around the raised garden bed area, as well as having a look at some Australian native plants which are in bloom at the moment. But let's start off with a little tip I would like to share with you about cut flowers. I just picked this little posy of primulas. I cannot wait to be picking big bunches of blooms from my garden, but we're a little way off that at the moment. Everything's still quite green and I am waiting on quite a few plants to bud up. But I do have some Dutch irises beside the primula patch, which are starting to show a bit of their blue petals. I've got them growing all along here, some in this raised garden bed and out in the front garden too. Of course, I'm no professional florist, but I have learned that it's a good idea when picking flowers to choose some that haven't completely fully opened. Like with this one here, where there are a lot of buds which are still closed. These will help to extend the vase life of your arrangement, because instead of having every single bloom open at once, you have a few fresh ones to look forward to in a few days, and they will die off a little bit later than the other ones in your posy. And you can always just come in, spruce up your bunch, remove those flowers that have died off and enjoy a smaller little bouquet. I'm standing at the front entryway to the raised garden bed area. I know this area is looking messy, especially down the back, but I have been prioritising my time out here sowing seeds. That's the most important thing for me to do at the moment. However, despite its lack of attention, as we know, nature carries on and these plants have continued to grow. I'm really pleased with this side here where I have my sweet peas. I could start harvesting from the leeks and celery. I came over here to give you a closer look, but before we do that, I noticed this thinking, oh, is that a weed? But you know what I'm thinking? It could possibly be chamomile, because I remember I had some of it growing here last year and I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll have to do a little bit further investigation, but how nice would that be if I got a little plant freebie? I don't have a heap of leeks here, only about 8. Oh, and there's one here trying to get out from under this foliage, looking for the light. So it's not really ideal, I guess, for a family of 5. But the way I look at things like this is, well, it's better to have 8 than nothing at all. Even if I only had 1 leek to harvest in here, great. And then I messed up picking it. The bottom section is still in the soil. What I was going to say is, even if you just end up growing 1 leek or 1 tomato plant, you can still learn a lot from that. You can try to figure out why the other ones failed, and hopefully you won't make that same mistake again. And case in point, look what I did. I damaged this leek when I was trying to harvest it. In future, I should be more careful when pulling these out of the ground. I could even get a little shovel or trowel, come in here, remove some of the soil from around the base, and that might help take it out in one whole piece. This is the bed where I had the bok choy, which is gone now and replaced by these stock plants. Here's one flowering. I wish there was smell-o-vision, because the aroma I'm getting from just kneeling down here is absolutely incredible. It's such a sweet scent. Right behind the stock, I have this little patch where I can see some nice little shoots popping through the ground. These here are a little bunch of gladioli. They are carnival blend, so there'll be lots of pretty colours coming from them. I mentioned that there was previously bok choy in here. Now, if you have the garden space, here's a little tip for you if you want to attract pollinators into your early spring garden. Now, while I didn't do it over there in that bed that we were just taking a look at, what you can do is leave one of your bok choys or your broccolis or your cauliflowers in the ground and allow it to go to flower. like what I have done here. And by doing this, it creates these beautiful little clusters of blooms which will attract pollinators into your garden, especially when you're talking about early spring and there aren't a whole load of flowers around at the moment. Doing this, allowing or sacrificing one of your plants to go to flower, and then you can always collect the seeds of it after as well once the pods have formed. And I think it looks very pretty as well. I am quite fond of the colour yellow here. Check out my carrot patch. I just couldn't be happier with how much they have taken off now over the last few weeks. I probably should start taking off the protective cover. I think these plants are big enough now that the chickens hopefully won't try and get in there and scratch them up. I find chickens tend to prefer the smaller seedlings, like say these peas over here. Maybe it's because they can see a bit more of the soil and it's more tempting to them. Anyway, back to the carrots. So I'm going to harvest one, probably one of these two, because they're looking a bit too close together and I really need to space them out a bit more. So I'm going to pull this one out, which I did have a quick peek at. So if you're not sure if your carrots are ready, you can always just brush the soil from around the edge and then you get an idea of what size it's going to be. This one still looks small, but you know what, I'm going to pick it anyway because I love doing this. Let's hope I've got better luck than when I was pulling out the leeks. Give it a little wiggle. Oh, there you go. I was hoping this one was going to be purple because I was going to share a little fun fact with you, but I'll do that anyway. Did you know that carrots used to originally be purple? And then from about the 17th century, growers started to cultivate orange carrots, which are the ones that we are all familiar with today. Okay, let's have a quick whip around some of the other beds. Here I've got the ranunculus, they're starting to grow nicely. In this bed I had a lot of rocket. I've pulled some of those plants out, but like with the bok choy, I have left a couple here to go to flower for the bees. But in its place where I pulled some out, I popped in some of those purple poppies. You can see a couple of plants just there. Here's my crazy amount of dill. This bed I have some overwintered chilies and capsicums. This one's at the very back, so you can see I've got a few of these rainbow chards and some lovely purple kale too. There in the centre is the mullein, and I think that's about it in here. Oh, and I do have this dahlia tuber that I want to dig out. I want to put this somewhere else in the garden. It doesn't really get full glory in this space. The chickens got to this one. I had a whole row of peas at the back. You can see where I've got some big indents where they've dug them up, despite me putting in lots of sticks to try and deter them. Anyway, that's all right, these things happen. Over here, underneath this basket, I can see some lovely shoots coming up. This is my comfrey patch, which makes a great fertilizer tea for the garden. I haven't had the heart to pull this, whatever this is going on. It looks pretty, but it was meant to be more productive. I originally had some Brussels sprouts in here. You can still see some of the chard. It's a nice yellow one. I think that was a broccoli. Actually, that one's still looking all right. Should be okay. And then, yeah, just some pretty little flowers there. A bunch of Johnny jump ups that's self-seeded. Let's leave this section and we'll go and see what else is happening. Oh, look at this. It's absolutely stunning. It's my Pandoria growing on one of the archways. It's got a mass amount of flowers at the moment. To think about 2 or 3 years ago, went in as a tiny little tube stock. I really love growing native flowers, and I definitely think if you're going to have a garden, you should always try and make room for some natives, because they are the absolute best type to grow, especially if you can get ones that grow locally in your area. This will really help to support indigenous wildlife. There's the first couple of flowers on this native mint. I have a few of these plants dotted around the garden. The blooms on the acacias or wattles are starting to fade now, but they're still looking so lovely. I've got lots of different types of grevilleas. This lovely red one, the orange one near the front door. This really big one in the front garden bed. Like, I'll just put my hand up against it. Look at that, isn't it spectacular? Like a burst of fireworks. and there's a lot more buds on this plant. Another Australian native that's looking nice at the moment is this silver emu bush. The last thing I want to show you before I head off is this wire cage. I've been playing around with this reel of mesh, trying to make some kind of structure that will support my dahlias during summertime. Obviously I haven't cut this bit off, but if you can imagine that I have this circle here attached to a stake, and probably I may even put a second stake in here, and I'm thinking that should be strong enough to hold up the dahlias, and as they grow their stems can come out through these large gaps. Thanks very much for watching till the end. If you're new to my channel and you enjoy this video, please consider maybe giving it a thumbs up or subscribing. I would really appreciate your support. Well, until next Friday, stay safe and happy gardening.